It's a cartoon. It's a
Just
in extreme ownership.
a little bit of love.
And if you didn't,
Don't worry, I'll take us where I want to go.
you usually do. I want to talk about chapter 2. so last time we talked, I was going to say last week, but it was not last week.
It's been a little bit.
Yeah, we've been busy. You and me both. So we kind of started. We started talking about extreme ownership. We dove into the first chapter, which is the definition and examples of extreme ownership. And now I want to talk about. I want to talk about this. I don't know about you. I mean,
Don't worry, I'll take us where I want to go.
you usually do. I want to talk about chapter 2. In extreme ownership. I think it's my favorite chapter of the whole book. Um, or maybe there's another chapter that's really good. I love also chapter 8, which is decentralized command. That's a really good one. But chapter 2 is really awesome because it definitely flips a lot of things on their head, I think, for readers. It's kind of like we well, let's jump in. So the title's called no bad teams, only bad leaders. Let me actually double check and make sure that, because my notes aren't always exact. Yeah, no bad teams, only bad leaders. And like that, I think really flips the script on the head, because a lot of people, a lot of leaders will come in and be like, I have such a bad team. Oh, my team is horrible. I can't do what I want because I've got a bad, like, got blah blah blah, whatever.
Very easy to.
Oh man, yeah, like that's like one of the that's one of the things that we talked about a lot last time, I think. I mean, I I'll fully admit, like, there are so okay. I used to work in a shipyard, all right, and mind you, this was when I was living in Connecticut. We were just talking about that. Ha ha ha. And I had a crew of like 3, 4 people under me, and they were definitely not the greatest skill wise. To kind of give you an example, there was one guy on the crew who was pretty much addicted to opioids.
That's something you can totally fix. Like cup of coffee, spank on the shoulder, and you fix that right away. That's like 10 minutes.
Oh yeah, completely.
I love opiate addicts. I'm not going to say anything about Biden.
Careful, careful there. Careful. We don't want to dive into that because that won't take us like hours. Oh yeah, no, completely. Um. So let's see. So yeah, I had that. I had that guy, and then I had a guy who just he tried his hardest. All right, he tried so hard, but he was dumb as a box of rocks.
Isn't that the worst? Right? You got somebody really trying, you see it, and they're doing what you tell them to do, and they just shouldn't have been on the team in the first place. Some later on, I don't think they talked about in this book. I think they talking about the next book, but there's basically like 2 chapters devoted to the path up to it and the fact that sometimes you got to let people go. So there's extreme ownership, but there's also having the right team.
There was that one situation that we talked about. Maybe it was in the bonus content. Which let me see. I think it was it's in chapter 11 where they're talking about two tech people, and they're at each other's throats all the time, and eventually they have to make the decision to let the two of them go. Um Like, it's kind of along those lines too, but not really like completely along those lines because this guy, man, I felt horrible because he really did want to try or really did try his hardest for things, but it was hard, very difficult for him. He kept wanting to try and do better and better and better, and it just wasn't working out. And it's like, dude, I can't, I can't keep doing stuff to help you. There's a certain point at which we just got to move on. But I could never really fire him because, well, unions, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Oh, I'm gonna have fun with that one. No.
One day we will. One day, I promise you, we will. Dude, I have very strong opinions about unions. Okay,
I guess Elon Musk too.
yeah, yeah. Well, and Jeff Bezos.
Yeah. But when you're the perfect employer, why bother with unions? You know, if you have a union, it just shows that you have a weakness you got to work over a little. Yeah.
Let me just a little taste of my opinion on unions because we're already there. I believe that collective bargaining is a good thing. I believe that if you, as employees, and you recognize that your boss is doing something that is wrong or that is incorrect or something, I think it is well within your rights as a group of employees to collectively band together and bargain with your boss to make things better. But I am 100% anti-union, and I guarantee you, I just lost a ton of people. There's lots of reasons for that, and a lot of them go back to my experiences with working with unions. Um, I am not a fan, so I'm going to leave it at that.
I am such a fan. I think when you want to take a beautiful company and destroy it, what you do is you get in a union and you demand more money than the company's making. If they don't give it to you, you then go and block any other people from coming into the facilities. And then what you do is you motivate the owners to raise the prices, to work for you like they should in the first place, and to really force them to realize whatever they did before to get to that point, it wasn't worth it.
I'm dying. I'm so dying. Yes. Yes. We haven't even really gotten into the chapter. I'm just sitting here thinking about that. Yeah, I seriously think we just lost a lot of people. Whatever. I don't care. These are our opinions. We are two dudes with an opinion, so we have opinions.
Yes. And we sprinkle them with salt and pepper of sarcasm. So accept it.
Yep, pretty much. So diving into this, like, yeah. So I really did have a couple of people who were really bad under me, but like the whole aspect of it is as a leader, I can't blame them for everything. There's a point at which I can blame them. Like if like that guy that I was talking about who's addicted to opioids, if he is shooting himself up with his medicine and he's sitting there high as a kite because of the medicine, then and I am not kidding. It was medicine. It was not like he was shooting heroin right there in the shipyard. It was medicine. He had medical waivers and all of that other stuff. But like if he's like that, it is my responsibility then at that point to recognize that he is high as a kite and not send him to go do something dangerous. Like that's my responsibility, not just to him because of his safety, but also to the safety of everybody else in the shipyard. So that's my responsibility as a leader. But like one of the big awesome things I think about this chapter is the anecdote that they tell, and I love it. I don't know if you remember it.
Are we talking about the corporate example or the guys with the votes?
The guys with the boats. Let's start with that.
Awesome. Run with it. You got it.
Okay, cool. I'll try and keep it kind of short, but because I really do recommend. Again, I cannot recommend getting this book enough and reading it, or getting the audio version and listening to it. The audio version is cool. I know you listened to it. I went back and I listened to it as well. Um, because it's a the authors are the ones who are reading it, and sometimes it's really interesting when the author reads it to you. So it's Leif Babin is talking about how when he becomes an instructor at Buds, Buds, yes, Buds, um, basic underwater demolition. Well, I don't remember. Anyway, whatever.
SEAL boot camp, right?
That we'll go with that. This is the boot camp after the boot camp. And he's watching these teams, and so what they do when SEALs come in is they divide them up among what they call boat crews, all generally about the same height, all generally about the same. Well, I don't think they factor weight into it, but mainly height. And the reason why they do the factor in the height is because they all have to carry boats and run around and carry these these boats. I wish I could like show a picture of them. Like they're just insane.
Everybody probably has the image of six men carrying a big rubber boat on their shoulders on the seacoast, and it's basically one of those huge mini 6-man boats.
I'm trying to remember, think of a movie that shows it off, but I don't remember. I think maybe like G.I. Jane, which is a horrible movie, but anyway, does that, shows it, because she goes and she's like the first woman to go through Navy SEAL training, and they show a good amount of buds in there.
Was she on the Smurf boat? I bet they wouldn't put her on the Smurf boat. That would probably be.
I think they did, because I mean that's the only thing that makes sense.
It's for the shortest ones. So was she very tall?
Yeah, and on average, women are like uh, shorter than men, so it would make sense to put her on the Smurf. But anywho, um, so they divide these guys up, and there's like this one boat crew that's beating every other boat crew all the time. Now, you want to beat other boat crews in these evolutions because when you beat them, you get a rest. If you don't, you get punished.
The losers get punished. The slowest boat crew gets punished with extra exercises, which I think is positive encouragement, right? That's positive reinforcement. And of course, the winners get negative reinforcement because they don't have to do anything.
I know. Isn't it horrible? In case you can't tell, Phil is being sarcastic.
Well, positive reinforcement is when you add stimulus, and negative is when you remove stimulus, I think. Am I wrong?
No, you are correct. That is those are that is the technical definition of reinforcement. Which I learned recently, by the way, before.
Congrats. This is a story after hours.
No, I don't know. I don't remember when I learned it. I just learned it out of the blue because somebody was like, "Oh, we actually use this wrong." I'm like, "Oh, cool." So this one boat crew is just beating everybody all the time, and everybody in the boat crew is just like highly motivated, highly excited, highly
Focused.
yeah, they're good. They're great. They're doing well. And then there's this one boat crew that is consistently failing. Like they're consistently coming in last every single time. Morale is dropping like crazy, and things are absolutely horrible. Okay, now setup. That's a setup. So what one of the instructors decides to do is make a change. Now, each boat crew has a boat crew leader. Most of the time, the boat crew leader is an officer. So this is Buds is slightly different from the rest of Navy training in that, when you go to Buds, both officers and enlisted go through the same thing. When in the Navy, and generally speaking, officers don't go through basic training as an officer. Actually, 100% officers do not go through a basic training as an officer. There's other exceptions. We can talk about that later. Or if you're interested, ask a question. We'll tell you. So they put the officers in charge of each of the boat crews, and so this instructor decides, let's swap the officers. So they take the officer, the boat crew leader of the boat crew that's winning, and the boat leader officer of the boat crew that's losing, and swap them. And something crazy happens. The boat crew that was doing extremely well, we'll call them boat crew one. I don't remember if that was it, whatever. Like they're whatever it is. They're doing like they come in first again. So like the officer who's in who was losing and is now winning, it's kind of getting reinforced in his head that, oh, I had a bad team. Well, hold on here. The boat crew that was losing, we'll call them, yeah. You were saying boat crew 2 versus boat crew 6. I was going to say the losing team was boat crew 6, so I had that right in my head. Okay, good. Boat crew 6 came in second. So here's the crazy thing. So then it started out like that, and then it ended up becoming where boat crew 2 and 6 were constantly trading back and forth whether or not they would come in first or second in each of the evolutions and stuff. So what does that tell you? Well, it tells you that there are no bad teams. There are only bad leaders. And we can start diving into what that means. Like, what is it? Okay, what does that mean in your head? Or do you have anything you want to add to that?
Why do you think that when the loser officer of Team Six, and when we say loser officer going through this kind of situation, that officer is probably pretty badass to start with. He came from he went through a lot of stuff to get to this point in the training. So when I call him loser officer, I do with some irony and some love. So
Just to give you an idea, like there are each buds class, there are more openings for enlisted members. It's actually easier for an enlisted member of the Navy to get a seat seat in the classes at buds than it is for an officer. Like it is very difficult for officers to get into buds. I think they only take
because they only accept like 8 or 10, right? And then they drown most of those out.
yeah, and they have to go through. And the reason why I bring this all up is because I know several people who were trying their hardest all throughout college to get into buds, and they had to train a significant amount to get in, to get even like an opportunity to go and test to get in, and then you have to go through a test like a physical fitness test, and for officers it's a bit stronger than it is for enlisted members, because one of the things that you can do as an enlisted member is as you are signing up for your contract, you can sign up and be guaranteed a spot in the in buds course before you actually are signed into the Navy. So like Phil said, these officers are badass officers. Like they've already proven themselves pretty yeah.
Yeah, pretty good. They're pretty good. And considering a lot of them, everybody officers enlisted at this point. There's a lot of people getting thrown out of the program from injuries. And probably, a lot of the guys at this point may have injuries just fighting through it. So
If I so if you want to hear some crazy stuff and crazy stories about injuries through buds, I highly recommend getting David Goggins's book, which is "Can't Hurt Me." That dude is beyond insane. You want to talk about a superhuman? He is superhuman. Okay, like he's just absolutely superhuman. And that is one that I think you should get the audio version of the book. The book. Do not get the print version. Print version is good, but because it's obviously that. But like that one, you need to get the audio version. Anywho, I'm sorry, Phil. I
just looking at it. So back to my loser officer. Uh, the so the question here is, how can this guy that was with the worst team go and still be winning, right? Uh, it definitely isn't his leadership skills. right? At this point, because he took over a team that was winning, and I'm gonna let Alan kind of play with that some, but um, we expected the officer from Team 2 to go to the Team 6 and to bring them up, unless they really did suck, right? Now, and he did right away. Like the first round, they got to second place, and after that, they were back and forth in first. But why the officer from Team 6, was able to keep up with the super officer?
So I would say a lot of it has to do with their attitude and everything. So we kind of talked a little bit about earlier in the podcast, blaming others. Like it's so easy to blame others, and it's kind of like when you start saying it's somebody else's fault, it's, woe is me, you're creating what I term, and what a lot of the other people probably term, a victim mentality. Like you're creating for yourself, I am a victim of my circumstances, I am a victim of what these other people are doing. And what's crazy is when you start creating that attitude and that mindset in your head, what you're doing is you're taking responsibility, you're taking the onus of change off of yourself. You're saying, so you're taking the view of, you are somebody that things happen to, like things happen to you, and it's not like you at that point. Then when you start looking at um your view world as somebody who you have no what do you call it, you have no agency. That's what it is. You view the world as if you have no agency. When you view the world as if you have no agency, you take away your ability to actually make any sort of changes. You're now looking at it like, I cannot do this. So let's take the example that I was talking about, where I had some genuinely poor performers on my team, and I I will fully admit, because it was hard for me at the time to deal with, because let's be frank, I was actually probably a little too young to deal with these guys. Um, just a reference, I was like in my mid 20s, and these guys were in their late 30s and into their 50s.
And it wasn't a union.
Yeah, no union here. There
No,
is no
no union.
union. um, boy, I have so much fun with this. I love it. Um, so it's kind of like sitting there saying, I don't have any power. I just gave these guys, like, I just got given these guys. I can't change them. I can't make any changes. I can't do anything. So woe is me, blah, 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 all that stuff. And that's like, that takes away all the power, all the ability of me to do anything, to make any sort of a change with them. And then because there is no ability to make any change, we just suck. We just suck as a team at that
I
point.
think you nailed it.
It's the
When
same
you
thing.
do this, you give up your power and you give up your authority. When you start blaming other people.
Well, that's what you said.
That's my opinion.
I said agency. I like the term agency.
I like power. I'm a power guy. You're so sweet.
I'm a hoity-toity, college-educated student.
You're so intelligent. I love it. That's what I like about you.
I don't
You
know
sound so
how
smart.
intelligent I really am. I sound smart. That's the funny part. I sound smart. I was sitting there thinking about that actually earlier today. I'm like, I'm pretty smart, but I'm also really dumb.
Introspection. You shouldn't do that too much. It's not healthy.
I do that all the time. And then I sit there and I'm like, I'm pretty smart, but I'm also really dumb. Okay, whatever.
It's
Moving
passive.
on. I mean, that's really just me. Like, it's just an acceptance of who I am. So there's this idea that comes in with them, and I kind of touched on it, but I want to kind of summarize it with this whole phrasing of, like, a leader's attitude is what drives the performance of your team. So we can go and we can look at, like, this team 6, the team that was constantly losing, and this guy, just ended up this leader ended up getting like really down on himself, and because and on his team, and when he started getting really down on himself and the team, it just was like, oh my gosh, there's nothing I can do to make these guys better, there's nothing I can do to do anything well, we're done, we're always going to fail, like it's all of that stuff. And let me pose this question to the listener, like how many times have you fallen into that? Like how many times have you got caught up into that trap? And like I said earlier, I like to think of it as the victimhood trap. Like how many times you fall into that? And a lot of it is, it really does go beyond just the leader. Like when you have the leader has a poor attitude, that just dives into everything. Like it starts affecting all of these subordinates as well. Because if your leader is feeling bad and terrible, you as a subordinate, you're looking at the leader and he's like, oh well, he has a negative attitude, he has a bad attitude, he's things are happening, oh well, like what's the point in me trying to do anything? What's like why should I try to make him feel better? Why should I try to make him look better? I mean, he's just blaming me anyway, so I might as well do terrible stuff and not take care of this. So that's kind of where I think. So then what happened? Like how did this turn around, and what happened with this team 6 stuff? Like
So essentially, the reason that the second team was able to keep winning, right, is because they had already learned how to win. They learned the practice, the what it took to win, and essentially they were winners, right? They knew how to get through the challenge. And the new team, Team Six, which I call the new Team Six, they quickly developed the the skills and the simple mental process to get to the winning position. And I think it's in this chapter. Thank you. That they say, well, what was the difference? Like Team Six just learned how to focus on the next target and get to that rather than focusing on winning. They learned to get to the hilltop, to the sign, to the beachhead, to whatever it was, and they learned that process so that they could probably have gone again, switched out Team Six with the next losing team, or maybe even at this point, I think they could have taken the original Team Six officer and put him on a losing team, and he would have brought it up, having learned this lesson.
yep, it was that one officer, and it was something about him and the team that he was originally on that they taught each other that important lesson, and that important focus of just looking at what is right in front of them, like what is the next step to get there, what is the next step towards our ultimate goal and stuff. Like if we want to take a step back, like that's kind of what you want to do as a leader in general, and as for companies and projects and stuff, like you want to look and keep an eye, you want to set up and keep an idea in your head of what is the ultimate goal that you're trying to get to. For app development and app developers, it's really just trying to provide a good good product to your user. For example, like Netflix would be probably trying to provide a great experience in watching movies. Like that's their ultimate goal. But it's kind of like at that point, okay, cool, that's great, but that's like a huge amorphous goal way out there in the ether of, I don't know what you want to call it. I'm just throwing out words at the moment to say you can't touch it. Like you can't feel it. Like, you don't know when you're there, except you'll know when you're there. Like it's just, you don't know what that is. So all you can do at that point is start figuring out what's the next step. What's the little thing that we can take today to get us closer and closer to that goal. And that's kind of what Phil was touching on with this leader who was being swapped from teams, and how he was pushing and creating that because he had that attitude of, okay, my goal here is to pass buds. My whole goal here is to get past whatever it is. But right now, the thing that is in my way to getting to that is this one evolution. It's, as Phil said, it's getting up that one hill. So that's how he started motivating and pushing Team Six. The original leader of Team Six, he didn't have that. He kind of had the view of, I guess, of like, oh, this is all of buds. Oh my gosh, this is horrible. Whatever. Whereas this leader who got transferred into Team Six, or Team Six, I can't say Team Six, Boat Crew Six, kind of looked at it like, all right, it's just moving us a little bit closer. So let me get these guys, let me focus, let me push them to and focus them in on that, that aspect of it, and push them to get to just one little step ahead, one little thing. It's kind of cool, and it's kind of like one of the things that they point out in the book is like the single greatest factor for a team's success is the leader. And you can see that very much in this example that they pulled, because just swapping the leaders is what changed everything. Like just that one little variable. But here's something interesting that we can kind of look at too. Why was Team 2 or Boat Crew 2 still succeeding? And you kind of touched on this a little bit, which is that they knew how to do it. And then what's interesting for leaders, I think one of the hardest things that a leader can do is to come into a high performing team. I think that is a very difficult thing for a leader to adapt to, because the team already has a lot of the processes, they have a lot of the cohesion, they have everything that in place already to make them really a good strong team. Like they're a high performing team and they're doing extremely well. So it's hard for a leader at that point, because what do they do? It's almost as if there's like really nothing for them to.
In fact, if he had changed anything, he probably would have put them back to the loser team. So I suspect he went in there and bit his tongue and just happy that he had superhero crew. And then I suspect pretty shortly he learned what the difference was. I think they probably sat down and said, "Hey, look, Killer, here's the point, right?" Um,
And that's like what, so using the Navy as an example, because if you're an officer in the Navy, when you get assigned to your ship and you end up getting put in charge of like a department sometimes, and usually what you end up with in your department is you have a leading petty officer. Sometimes that's a leading chief petty officer. Most of the time though, it's just going to be a regular old leading petty officer. I say regular old. Anywho, it behooves the new officer to listen to that LPO or LCPO, because this is something that is really interesting about the Navy that I'm like kind of, I don't know about, and it's about the military in general. They move officers every 2 years, but they don't move enlisted, but they move enlisted every 4 to 6 years. So it's give or take. A lot of it depends upon also like what your rating is. So what that means is your LPO or your LCPO has been there a lot longer than you and knows the people a whole lot better than you. So it's very important for you as the new leader coming in to sit down and listen to them. Like that's huge. And it's kind of like a lot of what Phil was saying. Like they probably sat him down and they gave him what for and said, this is what's up. And this is what we're doing. And this is how we're doing it. And you better get in line, sir.
keep up.
Yep. And it like pushed him and it changed him probably. Like
That's,
he probably had a much better appreciation for what leadership means than he did before.
they spoke of him pretty well. So
Yeah.
I think he shaped up and learned from it. I suspect I think the lesson would have been a little different lesson if he had never grown up.
It's very true.
The is there in this book? Do they talk about the guy that was training on clearing houses but could never do it right, so they ended up having to get rid of him? That must
No,
be
they
the
don't.
leadership dichotomy. Okay,
Yeah,
never mind.
the Dichotomy of Leadership is the follow-on book that they wrote to Extreme Ownership. That's on my to-read list. I haven't read it. Phil has.
It's good. It'll address. I think it'll put to rest some of the mental torment you have about those two guys that you're referencing.
Oh, yeah. No, I put a lot of that down a long time ago because it was a long time ago. Long and short of it is one of those guys ended up, or the guy who was addicted to opioids ended up lying. So I left that job, and I got a call shortly after leaving that they caught him lying on paperwork. You don't ever do that in the shipyard. There was nothing the union could do to protect him. He was gone.
Oh,
Um, yeah, this was really bad.
America went through their whole opiate challenge for a while there.
Yeah, when he had to do that without a job.
Poor guy.
um, there's a couple of other things that I want to touch on that, from this chapter that are very important. Like one of the big things that I do want to say pull out is it's kind of one. Um, how do I put this? It's it's very much what you tolerate. Like team performance is based on very much what you tolerate as a leader. So once you start tolerating something, once you allow something to come into play, that's when you make it the new standard. It is all of a sudden the new that is now the new standard for things. Let's say, for example, your team, and I'm doing using putting this in the business context. Your team has a daily meeting every day. You come in, and everybody sits down and gives their updates and stuff. If you're a software engineer, you know this meeting and you have been a part of it. Well, what if the project manager or the team leader allowed somebody to skip it and just start consistently skipping it? What is the message that they're sending to the team? I mean, it should be fairly obvious.
Yeah, it's why have the meeting in the first place? Just get work done, like the other guy is.
Exactly. So the leader is tolerating that and allowing that to happen. So now that's the new standard. Like that's what you are allowed to do. You're allowed to be like you're allowed to skip that meeting, even though that meeting is important. People are allowed to skip it. So people are going to stop showing up. So then that meeting is going to end up losing its significance, its necessity. And if we want to take this back to to what they were talking about with the boat crews, looking at the original boat crew 6, the losing when they were losing, that leader tolerated that victimhood mentality within himself, and he tolerated that stuff within the team. So, and just want to touch on that too. It's not just what you allow and tolerate with your team. It's also what you tolerate with yourself. If you tolerate a victim mentality within yourself, you're going to constantly be developing that and creating that mentality, and it's going to be there. But if you don't tolerate it, if you sit there and you start seeing and recognizing your your thoughts that are starting to go down that path and down that line of just victimhood, and you say, nope, I'm not going to go down that path, you're not going to become a victim.
And some of that might have been because he was in his mind. He's like, we only have another 20 days of this or something, right? Maybe even less, a few days, right? Um, he's probably thinking like, you know what? Even if we lose, it doesn't matter, right? We just got to get through it. Somebody's going to get smoked. Fine. This is just a team I have. We're going to get smoked, right? We'll save our energy and we'll get smoked afterwards. And I think that might have been some of his weakness, right? This probably doesn't apply to a lot of our listeners where they're like, "I'm going to be out of this job," because most of the people listening to this call aren't in a position where they're going to have be in a whole new situation within a couple weeks, right? But the lessons you learn from it help you realize when you are uh, giving up your power when you're saying when you should pull back a little bit and say, "Hey, am I, let's call it Captain Six right now, right? Am I boat Captain Six where I should be digging in a little deeper and trying to solve the problem, look at smaller targets, and just like when I get my head stuck in some code, I look for a smaller problem to fix within the same thing. What's the next little mini thing that I can do to get myself a win and to go on to the next win? And sometimes, as simple minded as I am, that really helps.
It really is. It's very important to just focus on the what's right in front of you. It's like I get overwhelmed sometimes with everything that needs to happen, and I just there it is. I just love the that whole concept of just focusing on what's right in front of you because I like I said I get overwhelmed a lot with things. um I'm I'm starting a new job and everything, and there's so much stuff that has to be done, and it's like holy crap, everything that has to, oh my gosh.
Actually, after in our little after the call, I'm going to just throw out there some of my big three hills. I think that I need to conquer, and you'll probably laugh about them, right? But I laugh.
I mean, I'll laugh, but but my laughter will be more of probably how you put it and not
Yeah, goober.
I know you.
Yeah, yeah, you do, you do. Poor you.
One of the things that I think I laugh about so much is like I know you, you know me, and I think part of the reason why we know each other is I think we're very we're almost the same person.
Like, yeah, Twisted Tea. We're like Twisted Tea brothers.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I love the concept of just focusing on one little thing in front of me. I love it, and sometimes I end up getting into the weeds of that one little thing, and then I miss all the other little things that I need to do.
Yeah, yeah, you got to focus on winning.
There's a dichotomy to that.
There's the dichotomy to that, which is why they wrote the following on book, because there's a lot of weaknesses from this book. Um, and they recognize it, right? They said there are some things that not quite balanced in the right direction, but you learn this first, and then we'll get into what's wrong with.
Sorry, I'm looking. I'm trying to refresh myself on what the business anecdote was. Do you remember it?
Remember last time I was talking about the leader that was having problems and everybody was to blame and they couldn't, he had the mission, he set the standards, and nobody was below him was pushing on it and executing. They all had excuses, and just like any excuse, he had excuses because nobody was doing what he said. Which is just like Captain Six, right? He was strong, he was pushing, he was doing everything Captains one, three, four, and five are doing, and maybe the Smurf group, and just his guys. It was his guys' fault. They weren't executing. They weren't pushing like he was. They weren't as strong, or as smart, or in my case, as beautiful. Um, they just weren't there, right? So, and this officer, not officer, this corporate person's issue.
CTO. So he was a corporate officer. Um, yeah, there was something I flippin' love this concept. Oh my god, I love this concept. Um, Leif Babin goes and labels this guy that Phil was talking about what he calls a tortured genius. Okay, I this con. Oh my god, I just like the job that I left. I was dealing with that. It was hard. Um. Anyway, I don't want to. I cannot dive into the details on that. I cannot. I can't.
We got to pick out later on. We'll try to pick out some safe details.
Yeah, it's hard. But I'm going to read from the book because I just the way he describes this is so perfect. I guarantee you, we all have met a tortured genius in our lives.
or been one from time to time.
That's the other part of it. I will fully admit I have been a tortured genius in the past. I have since stopped because I recognize that in myself, and holy cow, it made my life so much better. Ugh, do not be this. All right. Tortured genius. By this, this guy that was introduced, Leif Babin, to the concept, did not mean the artist or musician who suffers from mental health issues, but in the context of ownership. So, oftentimes when we hear the phrase "tortured genius," we think of like Michael Jackson, Prince,
Beethoven.
who's some, yeah, Beethoven, yeah, that's a good one. Um, Crud. Who else? Like, I'm thinking modern.
Obama.
Oh, Kurt Cobain.
Oh, Kirk.
Cobain is probably the best example out of all of that. Not those people. No, what he's talking about is somebody else. No matter what, no matter how obvious his or her failing, or how valid the criticism, a tortured genius in this sense accepts zero responsibility for mistakes, makes excuses, and blames everyone else for their failings and those of their team. Phil is writing a comment to me. In their mind, the rest of the world just can't see or accept the genius in what they are doing. An individual with a tortured genius mindset can have catastrophic impact on a team's performance. Like, holy cow. Like, I've been that in the past. I fully admit it, because I just was a young idiot who thought I knew what I was doing and thought I knew everything because I had read one or two books. I had gone to college. I got top of my class and like all of that stuff. And everybody should listen to me. Phil is probably laughing.
I'm laughing. No, I'm laughing because you on this one, if you don't laugh with your own pain, um, you're missing the fun of it. If you haven't been this person before, you haven't tried hard enough. You might need to look back and say, you know what, you should have pushed yourself a little bit more, right?
I like that. That's actually really cool.
Yeah. So it's okay to trip on this. It's bad to stand in it.
Yes. You're absolutely right. Like, that's one of the things that Jocko talks about a lot. I'm going to dive into an interesting concept here. You're gonna have an opinion, I know for sure, because we've already talked about this at one point. So Jocko talks about lots of stuff in his podcast. I haven't listened to all of it. Or all of them. I've listened to a bunch. But one of the things that he has taken up in the past is what people have termed these days toxic masculinity. And you do not get to say anything for a minute, okay? If you can't see the video, you need to, people. We do have video. Uh,
I'm holding my tongue.
so the idea from Jocko is he doesn't take this as the popular definition, the definition that you hear about out there. What he does is he talks about it in the sense that if you take something to an extreme, yes, it's going to become toxic. So in his mind, he's like, okay, let's pick on gender roles. There are roles for men and women in society. Blah blah blah. Okay, it's obvious that there are certain things that men and women have different between themselves. If you're not paying attention to that, I know you are. Phil just sent a message to me saying, "I'm so happy we are going here," and here in all caps. the point that Jocko's trying to get at is, all right, like if you take like the idea of gender roles or gender roles within a marriage, for example, or things like that to an extreme, yeah, you can have a very oppressive marriage for both people, for example. Like that could be considered toxic masculinity, where the man is just so overbearing on his wife and everything, and she can't do anything without his permission. And I will fully admit, honestly, I have seen marriages like this. Um, like that's what he's talking. Like you're taking that to an extreme. Um, and then but then there's the absolute opposite, where the man becomes so passive in his marriage that the woman is so,
Forced to have two roles.
yes, exactly. And so then that is like, that is not good either. That's also could be considered a form of toxic masculinity. Like the whole idea is, from him and the way he looked at it and the way he talked about it and explained it, is you've got the two extremes. And what you probably want with your relationship is somewhere in the middle. I laugh at the moment internally because we are now in a relationship advice section of the podcast. Please call in with your questions about your
Marriage
relationship,
counseling.
and Dr. Phil and I will try our best to answer and help you.
I hope you get Dr. Phil because it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, me too.
We'll record that.
The point and the reason why I bring all this up is kind of like going back to what Phil was saying, like with the whole tortured genius thing. Like if you sometimes you need to go to that extreme, like sometimes you need to go to the limits of stuff to understand where that limit is, to understand what not to do, like how not to act, how not to be. And you have to do that, and sometimes you have to do that in a lot of things. Like honestly, I think that's one of the purposes of like what the teenage years and what the early 20 years are supposed to be, because like you're so overwhelmed by your hormones and everything, and you have like this vision of the world as a teenager and early 20s person, that you know how the world works, and then you go out there into the world, and and because you know how the world works, the world just turns around and slaps you upside the head with a 2x4, and you realize, oh no, I don't.
I would almost say that's kind of where toxic masculinity starts. When you hit somebody, like before that, you're suffering with adolescence, maybe, or confused masculinity. But I think toxic really starts with a hit of something. It might start with being hit, but that's okay. Yeah, right. You got to learn somehow.
Just a little bit here and there.
Honestly, we all enjoy a good thump once in a while. I mean, who hasn't grown up? Toxic masculinity. I love it.
Well, it's like, well, you have three boys.
Oh yeah, yeah, and they're all boy and no brain trust anywhere in there.
Dude, I am utterly convinced that, so having had at one point a stepson, and having observed my nephews, I am utterly convinced that boys, and having been a boy, I don't know what I consider myself right now.
Maybe toxic masculine reformed.
um I am convinced that boys are out to kill themselves or to get themselves killed.
Or kill something. Like it doesn't matter. It could be the fish, the frog, themselves, whatever's in the way.
Boys are agents of chaos, like just utter agents of chaos. All right, it's just, that's what I believe about it. Like you want to talk about, you go, let's get super nerdy here, and you talk about like the D&D stuff. I honestly think boys are chaotic evil. Like I seriously think that's the case. And I don't mean evil as in the stupid idiotic vision of that, oh, we need to teach boys how not to do certain things. I mean evil as in they don't know how to behave. And so like and like other people who are much smarter than me talk about this, like aka Jordan Peterson, where you have to tame them, and you have to like teach them how to be a part of society and things like that.
Oh, just medicate them and cut stuff off. It's easy.
Sure. Did you I'm not going to say anything. All right. um I'm not going to say anything just yet. Oh man, this is we are in so much trouble.
Some self control. This is for part 2.
Good. Long and short of it, getting back to like that tortured genius thing, like it's like Phil said, if you haven't been to that point, you have not been trying hard enough. You have not like pushed yourself there. And maybe you're actually there right now. Maybe that's the case. And the thing is, if you really are at that point, and you are that person, and you're starting to recognize that, well, good job, because you just took the first step, because the first step is recognition, because you really need to recognize that. But then the second step, and it's the same thing with the victimhood mentality. Like if you have a victim mentality, the first step is recognizing that you have a victim mentality. And the next step, the very next little thing to kind of like to continue on our theme of just what's the next thing like right in front of you, is to just sit there and think about it. Like, watch your thoughts, watch your attitude. Like your thoughts become your reality, and it's very important. um especially victimhood, like watch when you start sitting there and you start blaming others, and you start, oh my gosh, Phil, you are not zen at all. If anybody is zen in this, it ain't us.
I'd have to say you're like 3 times as zen I am, though.
I no. I only put on like the fake zen.
You got
I just fake it.
You put the robe on.
Phil has seen my robe.
The robe, it's beautiful.
It's not white.
It's not white. It's not masculine either. It's not feminine though, right? Because we don't want to step on that.
Oh God, no!
Button.
Please no. We've already stepped on so many buttons.
Yeah. I don't get into stuff I don't understand.
Yeah.
I'll make fun of it in part 2.
You gotta make fun of things. Yeah, like, and if you're a victimhood, or you have that victim, just like watch your thoughts. Make sure, like, as soon as you start seeing something that starts making you the victim, just stop. Just take a step back and be like, wait a second, no, what is my role in this? I think Phil, you said it kind of really well in the last episode. And I really wish I had really wish I remembered exactly what you said, but it was along the lines of, oh my gosh, I've lost my thought now. Holy cow.
When you recognize, so it's so hard to catch yourself in this phase, because you're looking at problems and you've been trying hard to fix them and nothing's happening. You're the people that should be doing exactly what you tell them aren't. And you're either at 1 of 2 stages in this. You are either still shouting, screaming at them, or you gave up and you're like, I just need to ride this out until they retire and the problem will be gone because I can't fix it, or I need to quit. Right. And they can suffer with their own crap. Right. When you recognize that feeling, you got to then say, okay, can I step back some, and can I find a smaller target? Can I find some common ground? Can I listen to them and what the problem is? Or are they really the problem? And if they are, your job as the person that owns the success or failure of those below you and above you is to get rid of them. And at some point, Jocko and the guys talk about their SEALs, they carried along because they own the process, and it was not healthy for the corps, for the military overall. They brought people that should not have been pushed along. because they felt that was their role, right? They had to. It was easier to do that than to accept failure and to be smoked. So there's reasons for it why a leader will accept weakness, um, but you need to weed out the people that don't belong where they are. As a human, it's probably not a bad idea to try to help them find a better place for them. And a lot of times they'll appreciate it. Like if they really have a lot of emotional capital involved in it, or just believe you're a total idiot, it's going to be hard for them. But then they'll appreciate it later. If you are a total idiot, fix yourself, right? Uh, have the best way to find out if you're a total idiot, right? In my opinion, is to ask your boss to what he thinks. Say, do you think I'm just being a total idiot? You gotta put some humor in there because if you ask him straight, he's going to say, "No, you're a good guy. You work hard. I like you so much." But if you put some humor in there, he's like, "Oh yeah, you need to loosen up and do this and listen to these guys because they've been there for a while, right?" So reach out, and the it's kind of easy to see if you're the tortured genius or not.
I wouldn't necessarily limit it to your boss, just like somebody that you trust, that and the other aspect of that trust is it has to be somebody that you trust who's going to tell it to you straight.
And it's got to be somebody not directly under you. Um, it doesn't have to be your boss, but it could be somebody in another group, right? They'll have heard about it, right? And if they're a friend, they'll be honest with you. And just like I've always asked Alan, I'm like, just tell me it straight. Don't waste your time fluffing things up. My wife gives me a list of shopping things that she wants, and I'm like, you don't want me to get 3 boxes of macaroni and cheese because I love it. She's like, I'm trying to read between the lines, and she's like, there's no freaking lines here. 2 boxes of macaroni and cheese, a box of milk, and that's it, right? Because I like to read between the lines, and then when she's wanting me to read between the lines, I don't get it. So, toxic masculinity, we're not good at reading between the lines.
There's a oh man, there's some good stories out of that. I think we're gonna. I think we should just leave it there for this. I think you just summed up everything about this chapter really well. It's very
I'm so eloquent.
yeah. Well, you want to be. Feels so proud of himself right now. Anyway, well, so that was patting himself on the back. All right, so that was chapter 2. Obviously, we still have more chapters to go. Our next chapter, the next one we're going to talk about is what they've titled "Believe." It's kind of like the Polar Express, just believe. Do you remember Polar Express? Did you ever see that movie?
That that's so old. Is there a cartoon one or
It's a cartoon. It's a animated 3D animation. Tom Hanks voices one of the characters. He's really good in it, actually. He's a really good one. But anywho, there's so that's what we're going to talk about next, and we're going to dive into a lot of stuff. I also liked that chapter. I thought that's a good one. So we'll have some interesting discussion there. Other than that, enjoy. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please go and leave us a 5-star review because we really need it. And if you didn't,
if you hated it, send me a message. I'll have an answer for you. Send the bill. Phil's your friend. You can tell him honestly how you feel about anything. And I will not give you a sarcastic answer because I'm working on that. Just a little bit of love. Love you guys. Thanks.
thanks everyone. We'll talk to you again.